All right. Well, welcome everybody. We've got another great webinar today. I've got some amazing guests here, but this is going to be all about running some really successful paid advertising campaigns as you get ready for the high demand season, the summer, when the roofers and painters and movers are all out there doing their thing. Chris Fink, he's a partner here at Fannit. He's been a strategist, owned a business, been a general manager at another large business, and he's here to have a conversation with us, as well as Natasha Meineke. She is one of our paid search strategists that really helps clients out there. So welcome, you guys.
Hey, glad to be here, Tony.
Hey. So let's go ahead and get into this. So what's going to happen in today? Well, we'll talk a little bit about seasonality, right? We're coming into the high season and what that really means, and also start to talk about, well, what are the different paid digital advertising platforms that these contractors can leverage, and then we'll go into some mistakes that we see people or companies make, and a lot of those mistakes, but also we'll talk to you about kind of the secrets of how not to make those mistakes, and we'll go through a few examples. Then we'll finish up with a Q&A and a really exciting giveaway. Okay, so we've shown this on a few other webinars, but I still think it's applicable here, especially with paid advertising. A lot of companies out there promote and say, hey, look, run paid ads, get leads, run paid ads, get more leads. It's a little bit more complicated than, just like putting money in a vending machine. Successful paid advertising campaigns really kind of look like this. You've got your marketing, your ad campaigns that you're running. There's a lot of different data and information, kind of like putting your car out on a racetrack. When clicks happen of ads, you have the sales people that need to be, communicating with marketing who are running the ads on the leads that are coming in. And you have strategists like Natasha that are, communicating with sales and optimizing the car, optimizing the ad. So we'll go through some of this stuff. As you look at this picture, Natasha, what does this make you think of in some of the ad campaigns you've run before?
Yeah, definitely like Formula One, where it's fast and you need a team in order to make sure the car is running correctly. In pit stops, you're gonna have to have a full team of every time you review the ad campaign weekly. That pit stop is reviewing it, making sure all the ads are there, not there, but important steps like ad copy is strong, keywords are strong, negative keywords are there, and so on.
Yeah. Oh, I love the analogy of the pit stop. So seasonality, when you look at the calendar for roofers, painters, movers, you see a typical spike in more of the warm weather time frame, wherever you're at, right? This does change and differs a little bit in, let's say, Southern California or Arizona or Florida. Sometimes seasonality, it might be too hot in those areas. And all paid ads are doing is to really boost what you're doing during those times. And if you're running them properly, they should significantly boost how you're able to capture that more of that demand. So you might be doing a good job now, but when we typically come in and look at ad campaigns, one of the things that we want to look at is how well are they doing across a whole year, not just with campaign. Chris, as you think about seasonality of these businesses, what are some of the things you hear from clients about how you interact with them, what they expect during high demand?
Yeah, a lot of times it's interesting. The seasonality issue comes into the one side when you're in the on season, whatever time of year that may be, your selling season for your industry. Then of course there's the theory of make hay while the sun shines, right? So if this is the time where people are buying, then let's try to get as many as possible. But the one thing that I like to make sure that we're cognizant, we're having a conversation about is, let's not be drawing in more leads than you're capable of serving, right? Like, I don't want to have a 4-hour waiting line to get a hamburger. That, you know, this, so if you think about that, like if you've got too many cars on the track and nobody's going anywhere, then you know, you're not getting anything. And so you're not efficiently using your marketing funds. But if you allocate some of that into the off season, now this is the time where businesses will struggle a little bit, where that struggle is accentuated because you're trying to keep your crews working. You're trying to keep your operations, your logistics functioning and everything continuing and just maintain at a decent level. So if most services, while there's a seasonality and the volume goes up in that peak season, there's still some jobs happening in that off season. It's just a slower pace. But if we can capture a greater percentage of that market share in that slower time, then that allows for really healthy, sustainable growth that keeps an organization healthy year round, where you're keeping your teams and your crews working. You don't have to lay people off when it gets quiet. So sometimes shifting that budget a little bit in the off season can also have a really big impact.
Yeah, we used to say higher valleys and higher peaks.
Yep.
You know, if the off season is a valley, you still want to do a little bit better, even though it's not cranking along like peak season. Then when you're in peak selling season, high demand, you want to do even better. But you bring up a really good point about what are your crews able to take on,
right?
And at what point do you, you know, does customer service or service decline because you have too much business, you can't handle it?
Yeah, one thing I've seen is like waiting list times. You know, if you're having a contractor job, like let's say I was getting my trees done or my roof done, you know, or a painting job done, and if I start investigating it, I find an ad, the ad engages me and I click through and I reach out and I contact that company. They give me a quote, everything there sounds good. So now it's a service I want. The ad was engaging, makes me think that this is a good company that can fulfill it and the price fits. Awesome. And now you tell me I have a 3 month before they can start. I'm probably hanging up.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a person that, you know, has a timeline already in my mind, and that's usually too long. So if you have a 3 month waiting list, then I usually encourage my clients to like, hey, let's dial back a little bit and let's save some of this money and use it when we don't have when we don't have a 1 week waiting list, when we don't have a waiting list, like when business is low, and then we've got money allocated that we can go after and really try to get some jobs and make sure that everybody stays consistent.
That's such a good point. So let's talk about the platforms we use. And in this conversation, we're going to focus later on. We'll talk to Natasha about Google. We hope to have future webinars when we are talking about other platforms. So, you know, Google is good for they have Google search, or some people call it pay-per-click, but pay-per-click is I mean, you can click on an ad and, you know, another platform, which we use a lot, is Facebook and Meta. Instagram is included in that. What I love about our conversation, we were talking about this ahead of time, was the different ways these platforms attract attention. Yeah. So Chris, when you talk about, like, it's on the screen here, you know, the difference between search intent and interrupt.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what that means, because it was really good when we were talking about it earlier, and I think it's really important for people to understand this, for business owners to.
Yeah, hopefully it's as good this time. So yeah, I think about the two as kind of leaning in and leaning out. Google ads are great. They're high intent return. You have somebody actively seeking a solution, right? They're dialing in, you know, plumber near me, pipes broke, right? So they need help. They want it now. And so that's what Google ads is trying to fulfill. The meta ads is more of that lean out. Like, they might not have a problem. They might not be problem aware if there is a problem. But what we're doing is we're just throwing some type of engaging and content in front of them. Hopefully something that's a cool video or cool content, you know, cool, real good message, some type of hook, and make them think like, oh yeah, you know what? I've been meaning to check into that. Or now that I see that, I do need. So it's just they're scrolling. They have no interest in, necessarily, they're not seeking this out, but you throw it in front of them, and a certain percent of the population will go, oh yeah, that'll stick. And then they take action that way. So just two very different intents that you're going after. When you're after somebody who's seeking a solution really proactively and giving them a specific response or solution fills that need. The other people, they're spending time scrolling, kicking back, relaxing a little bit. And we're just throwing something like, hey, have you ever thought about having your living room painted?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess, yeah, maybe.
Well, if we get into this a little deeper, so what you're saying is on Google, people are actively typing in what they're looking for.
Yes.
Versus Facebook, they're a part of a certain audience that the advertiser is trying to reach, and therefore they get an ad in their feed.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's interest targeting, some demographics, lookalike audience, interest targeting. So if you have somebody that has a high degree of interest in, interior design, and that's all they're looking at, well, then you'll probably see some interior solutions ads, popping into your feed. So, I enjoy music. I have a lot of music stuff, and all of a sudden I see guitar string ads and, all these different instrument ads just showing up because that's what I'm into. So now I might not, and that's actually a great example because it just got me. So I was looking at one of my guitars, and I was, not really thinking about it anything, but I'm scrolling through and I see special on strings, and I was like, oh yeah, I do need to get those. And I wind up buying guitar strings. It wasn't my intent to do that when I sat down in front of a screen that morning.
Right.
But what happened because it exposed me to the opportunity.
Well, and the other thing here to think about is the idea of retargeting. Some people know what it is, some people don't, but let's say you were doing some research on Google, and because you don't just buy a new roof or hire a mover because you're not planning something. So you're doing some research, and you actually check out a couple of different sites because you eventually want to get multiple quotes on this stuff. And now what you're seeing when you're in Facebook, if that company's doing retargeting, you would get an ad for that,
right,
that particular website that you're visiting. And so now you're part of the audience that clicked on their website or visited their website. You might not have called sales, you might not have filled out a form to book an appointment or whatever, but you were on their site.
Yeah. And that reminds me of one thing we did talk about the other day too, which is this is all part of us. Like, we're big advocates internally about creating an omnipresent strategy. And by that, we mean that when something comes onto your radar, you become problem aware. No matter where you look, you see the solution we're putting in front of you, right? You see our client, you see the business that we're trying to promote. So, and the retargeting is a big part of that. And it works on both the Google and the Meta side. So that if you see a Facebook ad and you click on it, and now you're over in Google, and then you go to the website, and now you start seeing these things pop up everywhere. And that's, really enhances your opportunities at capturing that part of the market audience.
So today we're going to have Natasha take us down the rabbit hole of Google a little bit. We'll have another webinar where we look more at Facebook. But I also want to bring up the fact that a lot of times when we at Fannit, when we come across new clients, we run into the fact that they're using Angie. And Angie is a great place it's a different platform. It's a private platform, and it does have search intent, but it's really, they kind of control all of those ads. In the sense that they control the categories you're in. So sometimes you are placed in categories that don't make sense. They control where your ad is shown. There are times when they also, God bless their hearts, they sell your lead or that lead that comes in to multiple people.
Yeah. And
what that often means is if you don't get to that lead fast enough, and sometimes even if you do, the quality of that lead or you've just spent money on a lead that isn't going to your platform, isn't going to your website, or your Facebook page, or, you know, it's going to Angie stuff. And we've had a lot of complaints on that. So just be aware that that's there. I won't go into all the others. There's a few others, but I also want to bring up the idea that as you scale, you know, you can advertise on YouTube. There's also, you know, television ads, direct mail marketing, field marketing at events. There's these other platforms or other channels that you can really scale into that get some amazing results for, you know, roofers, painters, and movers. And so want to make sure that over time, we're going to be talking to you about all these different digital platforms that you can be on. So just a reminder, a quick reminder, when we talk about running ad campaigns, what we're trying to do is capture the demand in marketing for people who are wanting that service and or researching that service, and they click on your ad. And it tied to that click is a conversion to a lead. How fast do you follow up? Is it easy for them to go from an ad to getting the information they need? Those are different pieces, the sales part of it. So sometimes we see running ads, we're doing a good job of getting leads, capturing demand, but the sales part is slow. So you have to take those into considerations. So just a reminder there, we had another webinar. You can go on our YouTube channel and subscribe there to get all this information. So let's get into some of the big mistakes. Now, Natasha, you know, you're up. So I want to go through these one by one and have your sense for what you see when you take on new accounts. And we'll start with this first one.
Yes. So unclear campaigns and KPIs. A lot of the times when clients come to us, they can be confused on what their campaign's goals are or even what their KPIs are. And it's important when you're creating Google Ads to know exactly where they want to be in the next couple of months, what kind of goals, like what kind of conversions matter to them, and make sure it's aligned and aligned with our expectations of the performance that we're able to do as well.
So when you say what kind of conversions they want, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a conversion can be anything from a phone call to a lead form submission to there's a whole bunch of different types. Emails, thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Could be even a web page visit.
Yes. So you can convert, you can use a website visit as a conversion, but a lot of the times you won't really get to see, okay, what they did on the website. Like, did they actually fill out a form? Did they actually call? That's why we like to submit like lead form submissions and phone calls as conversions, because you can't really see what they do on the website after they get on there.
Yeah. So a big mistake maybe is their campaigns are set up to track conversions, but the conversion they're tracking are the wrong ones. So they might be tracking, oh, did you go to this landing page? And it's like, well, you know, that's great and all, but that doesn't tell us anything necessarily.
Exactly.
Natasha, do you ever have clients that like have no tracking? Maybe they just set something up and they didn't set anything up. They're just like, oh, I just need more jobs. I just need more leads. So let me just start running ads and business will get better, but no clarity of vision after that.
Yeah, actually a lot of the times, because conversions can be confusing, and understanding, like a lot of the times people just put their conversions to the landing page, or not the landing page, their homepage, sorry. So with that, you'll just get like a multitude of visits, and it can be like not really good quality visits as well. And it can like just kind of cost you more in the long run by having that. So,
all right. So let's talk about this next one, account structure. What is, you know, it's a hierarchy, right? So what happens here? What kind of mistakes do people make here, and why is this a mistake?
Yes. So account structure. So there's three different parts of the account structure. You have the campaigns, the ad groups, and the ads. So with the campaigns, that's where everything's going to be housed. You want to have different types of campaigns. You don't want to just have one campaign for everything. We're going to dive into examples a little further ahead here, but if you were to have, let's say, two campaigns and they were for, let's say, a roofer repairing roof and then roof maintenance, Those would be a perfect example of a good quality way to start campaigns. Before you start your campaign, obviously you want to know what the expectations are, where you're going with a campaign. You want to know who your target audience is, your geographic locations, and you want to know everything that you can about the campaign. And that's in that section. Ad groups then hold the ads and the campaigns. It's basically a way to organize it. So inside ad groups, you can get into more specifics with the keywords that you want to target. So you could do like keywords with exact or phrase match in certain ad groups. And then it dives deeper into ads, which is actually displayed on Google. And in the ads, you have the headlines and the descriptions and the images. All of that have to be optimized in the ads with the correct keywords and the correct images that you want to display in for the ads.
And so what mistakes what's a big mistake you see happening when you first run into accounts in terms of structure?
Definitely. Yeah. I would say like having one ad, one campaign and one ad group and thinking that that's enough. Google likes variety. So if you can just create, even if it's just 2 to 3 ads, that will like help your business immensely, just because that will give it more options for it to like cycle through its algorithm. That's a big mistake. For campaigns, I would say, like I mentioned before, just having not organized campaigns. So let's say you have one campaign and then a campaign about roofing repair, and you decide to have all broad match keywords, then that campaign is going to fail because you don't have it organized into a correct ad group with the correct keywords. And the broad match keywords then just bring in customers that you don't even want to begin with. So,
Yeah.
Natasha,
Mhm.
the prevailing theory that I've had in my head anyways is that for like campaign segmentation, some of the most common structures are brand, non-brand, competitor, and remarketing. Would there be any others that should be included in that group?
Yes, I would go in. Well, I guess you could do services and ad groups, but I would do locations as well sometimes. That seems to be helpful. So if you have a client that has multiple locations, making sure you have a campaign or an ad group for those locations is vital, just because then you can see the conversions that are coming from each of those locations and the different numbers that they produce.
So for example, your campaign might be a new roof install.
Mhm.
Your ad groups could be for, Phoenix, Seattle, and Chicago. And then your ads would be specific to those geographies and specific to maybe the types of roofs that you would replace. And the imagery and language, because they're different geos, is that a good example?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the headlines will be similar just because it's like a roofing repair, but if it's the different types of roof, then you definitely want to make sure that you have different headlines and different images, of course.
Right.
Can I throw you a curveball and just ask you a question about it? So sometimes I notice with some service contractors, especially in home services, that serve a wide area, that, for example, if we're going with roofers, storm damage on roofs, right? If you have hail or you have storm damage, high winds, something like that, that causes needs a repair. So if they have locations set up, then is it efficient to, like, you can just kind of take that as a template, stamp that onto the new location, then start focusing those campaigns in on the exact neighborhood that was hit by this storm or the exact town quickly, but already with an optimized campaign that already has optimized keywords?
Yeah, I've actually done that before for emergency relief efforts in like Oklahoma, Florida with HVAC and roofers. So a lot of the times we already have like like you said, already filled out headlines and images, and we just copy and paste them into a different one and make sure it's in the correct geographic area. And we also, a lot of times, will increase our budget when it is an emergency service like that, just because you're going to have a higher click-through rate and more impressions because of the larger keyword volume. So
Yeah.
because of that, it's important to make sure that your budget is able to sustain that amount of interactions.
And having it organized like that allows you to increase the budget on that one area, not across the whole account. If you didn't have a good hierarchy, the only way to do it would be to increase the budget for everywhere, which wouldn't be as efficient.
Exactly. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
So that kind of ties into our next two areas of mistakes people make in budget management and bidding management strategy. walk me through these and kind of what are the challenges people have in these areas.
Yeah. So Performance Max is like Google's golden child, for say. Google loves to make people use it. I mean, I love Performance Max, but it can be very daunting. So Performance Max, what it is it allows you to advertise on every single one of Google's platforms, including YouTube, Gmail, anything that Google is associated with, Performance Max will display ads on. So clients, obviously, yes, I want to be on that. But the budget, you want to make sure that you have a strong budget for Performance Max because it's on so many different platforms. You're going to get a higher interaction and impression rate. So it's important that you talk to your strategist about the budget that you want to perform. I mean, every cost per click is going to be different based on the industry. So it's hard to say what would be a perfect Performance Max budget. But it's important that, like, before you jump into that you talk with your consultant and you figure out what the cost per click is right now for the industry, and then what the conversion rates are looking like as well.
Well, and the other thing, and tell me if this is some things that you've seen, but over time, what I've seen is that people jump into using Performance Max right away before they have certain things, their account structure figured out, before they understand, or before they've been able to kind of manually get to a point where they've increased conversions, because conversions are, sales conversions are what everybody ultimately wants. And so what do you say about the strategy of it goes slow at first because you're manually doing bid management, you're manually looking at platforms, you're making sure that you have some success with ads and ad groups that you've set up properly. And now it's like, okay, do your thing, Performance Max, because now here's what you should look at as an example of how to run an ad or how to run these campaigns. Otherwise, it kind of Performance Max or PMax can just run wild and spend all your money.
Yeah, it can. Definitely having previous ads to compare or to add to Performance Max is important. Performance Max is a little different than a search or a normal ad, in which it doesn't use keywords, it uses asset groups. So that's where it gets a little confusing. But if you have the right asset groups and you have the right images and the videos from your previous ads and you know that they work, then implementing in your Performance Max would be vital and important. Yes.
Okay. So as we look at this next one, improper ad copy, I mean, that kind of speaks for itself, but tell me specifically what you mean by that.
Yeah. So in your ad copy, you have headlines, descriptions, and images. That's your basic layout, I guess. And in there, you can have headlines that like don't have the proper keywords in which you want to target. So let's say you're a roofer and you say roofing repair, and that's the only headline that you have. Well, that's not really solving the client's problem. So if you were to say roofer repair solutions or roofer repair near me, something like that, in which you can show that you're solving the client's problem, that's vital. And making sure those keywords that you are wanting are implemented in the headlines and in the descriptions, but they're not repetitive as well. You don't want to over cannibalize your headlines. So yeah, that is making sure you have proper ad copy. There is a score that you get, an optimization score. It goes from like poor, good, average to excellent, I believe. And you want to stay above good, basically. And Google likes that. If you're below good, then Google will basically penalize you for that and your ad will not show as much. So Google will tell you if your ad is optimized or not. And it's important to follow those. And it will tell you what to do, like add more headlines, add more keywords, so on.
Right. Misaligned landing page copy.
So that is kind of what we touched on earlier about having, like, for example, having a home page as your landing page for your ads. That can, a lot of the time, you'll have low conversions because, let's say your homepage, you don't have a form that pops up immediately, or you don't have a call to action. A lot of times that will cause poor campaign or poor low conversion rate because of those reasons.
So what you're saying is you usually have a what we might call a sales lander or a landing page that's not your homepage, because a lot of times you see people that send all their ads, no matter what they're for, to a homepage of the website.
Yes,
and
exactly.
That's where they get lost on, all the different options and things that you can do. versus going to a landing page where it's very specific about what they just clicked on. And now, so if it's like a roof, roof repair, it's all the reasons why this company, this roofing company, is the best roof repair company, in the place that they clicked on, in the geolocation they clicked on.
Right. Exactly. We'll I wish I had a great example, but there is an example of which there's a homepage and there's no phone number or landing form, but the homepage is fully SEO optimized otherwise. So the client can just get more confused and be scrolling and never see the phone number or a form. And that can just, like you said, just cause more confusion when there's just a landing page. Simplicity is important, right? The more simple you can make a landing page, just a form, a couple blocks of information, the better you have of getting a conversion.
Right. All right. And the last one we talked about was just the improper or setup of the tracking of the campaign.
Yeah, that is something that's complicated. Making sure that you have the right conversion tracking is very important. Otherwise, you just don't know what you're tracking. So you could have conversions set up just for a click to the website, and that could count as a conversion. Or you could have a conversion set up where once they hit the submit button on a form, that counts as a conversion. So it's important that you add the conversion tracking code to your Google Tag Manager, which it gets a little complicated there. But yes, and making sure that everything's connected through Google Tag Manager and the triggers are happening is very important. Otherwise, you won't be able to track the conversions and you don't know how your ad is performing and you can lose money.
Yeah, it's like being, in layman's terms, I look at it like being able to see the reality of what's happening and what you care about.
Yes.
Hey, Natasha, can I ask you a question? I think we might have kind of blazed by one part on this, which is the budget management, like thinking Google knows what's best. And I think what the intent there was to think about not the different types of campaigns like the PMAX and broad match, but how to set up bidding. So like manual CPC, enhanced CPC, smart bidding, which is Google just knows what's best for you. So, but can you touch on that a little bit and like where those different things are best served?
Yes. So you have different types of bidding. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the bidding strategies right now. Chris, can you say those again?
There was manual CPC, enhanced, and smart bidding. So target CPA or ROAS.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Target CPA is basically what I use for most of my accounts because you can handle the account better, and you can, like in the word it says, you can have a target cost per acquisition. So you can say, hey, this is how much I want to spend on my acquisition. This is my limit, and no further, no on. Or you can have a smart campaign, which is Google's way of saying, I'm going to manage your campaign. And it's easy to select smart campaign, right? Because it's less work. You can just lay back and Google does the bidding for you. But it's dangerous because it's going to say almost every other day, hey, let's increase your bidding for this and that. And you can get lost in that very easily. So I always recommend target CPA to start off. You can also do maximize clicks and maximize conversions. That gets a little complicated in there as well. But yeah, so I always recommend starting with a target CPA.
So this might be a silly question, but how do you calculate acquisition? What is that? What is an acquisition? What's that?
That is a conversion, basically. It is Google's fancy way of saying conversion.
So if you acquire a lead, and a lead is someone filled out your book an appointment form, and you could say optimize for the cost to get to that point, or optimize for the cost of just getting a click on the ad. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. It's okay.
So I just want to, because a lot of people aren't as deep into the woods as you are with all this stuff. So, including myself. So when you optimize for one or the other, I guess we probably have to have a whole class on this stuff. But the mistake is here letting Google just spend your money.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really the mistake, without telling it specifically what to do based on the ad strategy.
Yeah. And this is something Google tells clients basically with that, what almost all of my clients have told me that every other agency tells them over time, which is like, well, I want more leads. Oh, okay. Spend more money.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they're not the best ones. Oh, nope. Oh, these aren't the good leads. No problem. Spend more money. And Google just does that and makes that decision. And they're constantly recommending that, hey, let's increase the budget. Your ad stopped running at 1 a.m. Let's increase the budget. Like all these crazy reasons that they throw out there.
Yeah.
But the answer is always, when you ask them, it always will include spend more money, increase your budget. So I think, to Natasha's point, having a really clear discussion about what a lead is worth, what a conversion opportunity is worth, and actually tying a dollar amount to that and saying, this is what the value to me of a lead is based on what my average close rates are, et cetera, all that cascading down. So math over mystery there. And then using that number to manage your bidding, I think is a more laser focused way. Is that kind of what you're saying, Natasha?
Yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying, Chris. Perfect. You took the words out of my mouth. I don't know how you do it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
It's a team
Oh,
effort.
okay.
So we'll have, this is just Google. We'll have another webinar where we talk about Meta. So we're kind of running out of time and getting lower on time. And I want to get into some specifics, examples to have you show us. But we already hit on some of this. You know, we had seven areas of mistakes, but there's like 3 fundamental areas you want to get right. And you know, what's assumed on here is that tracking is set up properly. So I don't want people to go, well, you forgot tracking because you have to track it. Yeah, this is assumed. So when we talk about some fundamentals around account structure, bidding strategy, and conversion and landing page, when we go through the examples in some campaigns that you've seen that aren't set up very well, and what that means, and some that is, you know, we'll have you hit on these 3 because we already talked a little bit about these 3. So Google Ads dashboard. This is an example of, well, walk us through this.
Yeah. So this is an example of a client who just came to us who was managing their own ads. And they listened to Google basically every time they said, let's increase the budget. And this is a result. So as you can see, they had around a little over 4,600 clicks, 187 conversions, a cost per conversion of $50, total ad spend around $9,000. So things that you'd want to improve on is, if you look at the dips here, certain days may suggest audience misalignment, or like hours that we should have been advertising and we weren't advertising in. So it's important to look at the dips in the conversions and then the clicks, and look back at your audience segmentation and also your date range and your time range to make sure, okay, is my ad running on Sundays, for example, at 4 o'clock? Or why was my conversion rate so low then? So it's important to look at those dips. For the keywords, a couple things is that you can see that they're all matched to broad match. So like I mentioned before, there's broad match, exact match, and phrase match. I might be missing one, but broad match is basically the lowest one. It's, you type in a word and that's what's gonna come up, as long as it's somewhat near the category. So if this example, I can't see the text right now, but if it's like a well repair, anything that's close to well repair typed into Google search, the client will appear for. So that can be, go ahead.
I was just going to read off a few of them, like well pump service near me, well and group repair. Broad match is really like you're casting the widest net you can cast, because it catches broadly anything that involves any of these search terms.
Exactly. And a lot of the times you'll have, for this example, a low conversion rates and high costs, which no client really wants to see that. So
but Google
that
wants
really
to use that. That's why they recommend broad match so often as a part of their automatic recommendations, is use broad match. You'll get more clicks if you spend more money.
Yeah.
So when you look
basically
at the campaigns, when we zoom in, there's your proof.
Yeah, you look at the campaign, the cost per acquisition is for the water treatment, for example. Let me see if I can zoom in here a second. For example, you have a conversion rate of 3%, 3.91%, 167 conversions, but you had over 80,000 impressions. That's something that you definitely want to take a look at and say, okay, why are we having this many impressions and a conversion rate of only 3%? So that's something to look into. And
Yeah.
we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. And the keywords can definitely implement this or impact this because you have the keywords and broad match. You're going to get all these impressions and you're going to get wasted clicks as well. And then you're going to have a low conversion
Because you
rate.
did cast a wide net with broad match. And so, oh, wow, this ad is appearing everywhere, 860,000 plus, but you only got 3.91% conversion. Now 167 conversions or leads seems like a lot, but your cost per your cost per conversion might be too expensive. So maybe like in the Nest example, by the way, 4,200 clicks. In the next example, the impressions are only 3,400 and some change with 178 clicks, and they were able to get a 10% conversion.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, how do we take the results on that and do a better job there?
Yeah, so that's definitely looking at the campaign and seeing the difference, right? Comparing those two campaigns and doing A/B testing. A/B testing is so important in Google Ads because you will have a campaign that's successful and that campaign that's not, and you can A/B test those ads together and see which one's not working and so on.
Right. And so this is an account that you recently brought in that you were looking at, like, okay, there's a bunch of areas for improvement.
Yes, yeah.
I wanted to show this as a brand first example of an ad. I don't know if there's much to say on this one. We'll kind of skip that one for a second and go to the ad groups. So now you have an ad group of that earlier example we were talking about. These are the ad groups that were there.
Yes.
And in this example, the ad group was Coast Ad, whatever
Yeah,
that means, on the coast.
Yes. So in this example, it is displaying one ad group that I found, and the conversions were just interesting to me because they spent almost $3,000, $2,700, and only got 18 conversions at a cost per conversion of $153. That is something that you'd want to pause this campaign and take a look at what's going on because something isn't working. It could be the ad structure, like how the ad is formatted. It could, then again, going back to the keywords, it could be too many broad match keywords. It could also be not having a negative keyword list. It is very important to have a negative keyword list because that will exclude everyone that you don't want to see your ad. Basically anyone that you don't need to see the ad. It
Right.
excludes them, and it's important to have that. So this is an example of the guy didn't have a negative keyword list. His keywords were too broad match, and the ads, the headlines and the descriptions weren't very informative, and there wasn't really a call to action to them.
Right. Okay. So this next dashboard, this is a totally different scenario, right? This is one we've
Yes,
optimized.
this is a campaign that we have fully optimized. So as you can see, the budget is a lot lower, but the conversion rate is significantly higher. So their cost per conversion has stayed around $20 this whole month, with a total conversion of 242 conversions. And we know we have actually set up the conversions correctly. So these conversions are call conversions, lead form submissions, and also chatbot conversions. So we are able to really hone down into the conversions and see where they're coming from because we have them correctly tracked, which shows in this as well.
Hey, Tony, Natasha, there was a question from one of the viewers that I could ask real quick on that. You mentioned conversions being set up correctly.
Mhm.
The question was, how should that be done? Should that be done using Tag Manager, using Google Ads conversions, or Google Analytics 4? Where's the best place to set those up?
Google Tag Manager.
Okay.
Yes. It is. Yeah. So you can get a little snippet and then you can tag it into Google Tag Manager. And then you can also see if it's triggering because you can work on Google Tag Manager and press the preview button, see the preview of the ad and see if it's triggering correctly. I mean, not the ad, the landing page, and see if it's triggering correctly. That's the best way to get conversions set up.
And if Tag Manager is set up correctly, that will allow for tracking in Google Analytics, but in Google Ads and pretty much anywhere that needs it, and it'll all kind of be interconnected.
Yeah, Google Tag Manager is like the master, and then there's little web pieces after that. Yeah. That will follow.
Right.
So then moving on to these keywords, you can see that the interaction or the impression rates is a lot lower compared to the impression rates with the previous campaign. And the reason because of this is if you look on the match type, or I can't read that, what type of keyword it is, there's
Yeah.
exact match and phrase match. You don't really see broad match on this list. And that is because broad match, like I mentioned before, is such a wide net. With exact and phrase match, you can actually get the clientele that you want. And it is exact matches, they're typing exactly what is your keyword. Phrase match is very close to your keyword. So because of that, you can see that we have lower impressions, but our conversion rate is much higher because because we have the correct viewers and stuff like that.
Is it true, Natasha, that with like broad match, you don't even necessarily have to have the word that they typed. It just has to be somehow associated with the meaning. But with phrase match, it has to contain one of the words in the keyword that we're targeting, or a group, it's got to be like maybe not in the same order, but it's got to have the same stuff in there in the actual search query. And exact matches, it has to say exactly what was typed.
Yeah.
Point. So on these campaigns, what you want to point out?
Definitely the impression rate again is it being lower, and that's because of the keywords and the ads that we created. So the ads that we created have site linking extensions, they have headlines, descriptions, and good images. All of that helps with lowering the impression rate. I mean, keeping the conversion rate high, keeping the conversions solid, and then making sure that you're getting good impressions and good clicks. So these campaigns are organized based on, it's kind of hard to see, but they were based on, so we have a general, like a branded campaign, and then we have a non-branded campaign, and our branded campaign is actually the one that's doing a lot better. And we have focused on the client's name specifically on this. And we found like that has converted significantly faster than the other campaign has.
Why would a branded campaign convert? Does that mean people know who they are already?
Yeah, that's just a name brand recognition. That's them typing in like on the go moving and stuff like that.
Is there a really big opportunity to go after competitive by bidding on competitors' names?
Always. That's actually one of my favorite things to do. I'm a very competitive person, so bidding on your competitors' keywords is actually a really smart tactic. And I would recommend doing that, but make sure that you're doing it correctly with the right keywords. Like you're using their name and you're making sure it's in the right location. And there's a couple more things, but yes, that is important.
So let's talk about the ad groups here. And
yes.
So now that you have all that, you see higher conversion rate. I mean, like 43%, 69, 81%. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
But is that because it's a brand related search that's that high?
Bingo.
Yeah. So does that mean it's because they also have, that brand has authority elsewhere?
Yes. It has strong SEO authority, like strong Google authority, SEO obviously, strong Facebook presence, or strong, like you mentioned, billboards and stuff like that. People are seeing their car around. Any type of marketing, they're doing very well in. So that shows that.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I just want to say thank you both, Natasha and Chris, for hanging out with me and walking me through some of this stuff. Every time I have these conversations, I learn a ton. Chris, you had a question there before. Do we have any more?
Let me check. Yeah. Here was another one. Natasha, you mentioned earlier the quality score of an ad.
Yes.
What are some of the common tactics to improve that?
Yeah, so that's pretty easy. A lot of the times a low quality score is because you only have like 3 headlines. It's important that you have more than 3 headlines. So you want to have as many headlines as you can. With Google, I believe it's like up to 15. And you want to have descriptions that are like matching with the keywords as well. You want to have a long tail description, as well. So it tells you how to improve your quality score, but also like keywords, headlines, having lots of headlines, having as many descriptions as you can, having your business logo on there is a huge factor. And then having images is also a factor.
Got it. Okay. And then the last question, where was it? What are some of the things that you keep in mind when you have to, when you're trying to scale a campaign without hurting its performance?
Yeah. So for example, the campaign that I showed before, right? You can see that they're performing, they're spending a lot of money and they're having conversions. It's not like they're not. So something that we like to do is we like to keep the campaigns that are performing while running and then pause the ones that aren't performing. for now, and then review and see, okay, well, what is performing well and why is this performing well? Maybe do some A/B testing as well.
Does that mean when you turn off campaign and leave the ones that are performing best running, does that mean you automatically switch budget to those campaigns that are performing well, or is that something that you have to manually do, or how's that work?
When you pause a campaign, the budget does not go anywhere else except for that campaign. So you would have to manually edit the budget into this separate campaign.
Got it. So you'd have to say if campaign A and campaign B was outperforming A and you said, let's turn off A, you'd have to manually go, oh, well, take this budget that we were spending on A and spend it on B.
Yep.
Got it. Great stuff. Great stuff. Any more there, Chris?
Yeah, there was one more if you have time for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there an ideal number of ads per ad group that you should run?
We have about 5 ads per ad group running on average. That's what I like to see normally. So around 3 to 5 really is a good number.
Okay. What's the consequence of going over that? That's just my follow-up. I don't know.
There is no consequence. I just think it's easier to track, basically. Easier to track which ads are performing better, and it's just a clearer picture. There's no consequence to have more than 5 ads, though.
Okay, cool.
Have as many as you'd like, Chris.
Wouldn't you at some point be spreading your budget too thin across multiple campaigns or multiple ads? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, okay, we have, $5,000 to spend this month on ads. We have 5 ads running across 2 campaigns versus we have 25 ads running across, 3 campaigns. Don't you spread it too thin, or do you even think about it that way?
I have never really thought of it that way, because how Google manages their campaigns is like there's a bucket and Google just pulls from the bucket for the ads based off the campaign budget. You have a daily budget with Google. So let's say you have a $25 budget and you have 6 ads running. That's going to get eaten up fast, but Google's going to figure out which ad is actually performing better and put more money towards that ad, depending on which bidding strategy you have, of course.
That figuring out time frame, how long does it take for Google to, when you set these things up and you have these A/B tests, like how long do you have to let an A/B test run for Google to know, okay, this is the set that I want to serve?
I usually use a week and a half to 2 weeks. That's like full algorithm. Google can work all of its kinks out and stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
Well, thank you, everybody. I also want to let everybody know that we have an ebook out there. If you want to start investigating this stuff yourself and go the DIY route, there's this ebook about how local service businesses get the most from paid advertising. I think there's multiple platforms they talk about in there, but very good, strong way to educate yourself. The other thing everybody can get access to is a paid advertising audit. Now, Natasha can do a live audit with you on the phone, sharing screen, that I would encourage. And that's where you pull up your ad account and she walks you through a process similar to what we went through here in the webinar, but a little bit more detailed to kind of give you a sense for that. And you could just email her directly at natasha@fannit.com and we'll hook that up for you. So thank you, Natasha, for volunteering to do that for people. Even this is going to go out on our YouTube channel, so you may get some folks in there that want to do that. And we can also do it by platform, Google and Facebook. So I really encourage everybody to take advantage of this. Thank you so much, Natasha. I really appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you, Tony. And thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Great conversation.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, all.
Bye, guys.